So morning, folks. My name's Chris Brown, and I'm the Communications Manager at Colmore BID. Thank you for joining us today on our cybersecurity webinar. This event sort of follows off the back of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which took place in October. The BID did a number of activities during the month, working with the Resilience Centre and a couple of other partners as well. We published our own security publication as well for the month, which I'll share later on. But having spoken to quite a few businesses, we kind of found out that a lot of people just aren't aware of the risks posed by cybersecurity. We all know that it is an issue that impacts businesses, but I guess a lot of business owners we found feel like it'll never happen to us. Now, with the increase of number of people working from home at the moment, that's actually raised the risk of cyber attacks. More people are using their own devices at home, connecting to remote servers, things like that, which makes it easier for the hackers to get in. There's also lots of other risks, which we will talk about in a bit. But before we delve into some of these topics, I thought we'd better introduce the panel that we have here today. So I'm going to introduce them quickly, and then they're going to give us a little bit about themselves and their business. Once we've done that, we'll head over onto the Q&A and the questions that we've got lined up as well. We're looking to wrap up this session around 12 o'clock today. It is being recorded, so if you have to dip out, you'll be able to find it on YouTube as well afterwards. If you do have any questions though, please do put them into the chat and I'll field them amongst the panelists, and we'll try and answer anything as well. If we don't get time to answer all the questions, we'll try and do a wrap up afterwards as well. So we'll do a written wrap up of some of the questions. So first up then on the panel, if we go to Deb Leary, I feel like this is a bit like a Who's Who game show, but Deb Leary, where are you from? It's a blind date, isn't it? Tell us your name, where you're from.
Don't ask me my age, I'm happy. Thanks a lot, Chris. I'm Deb Leary. I'm CEO of a company called Forensic Pathways, based in Birmingham. We've been in existence since 2001. We are known for developing technologies in the criminal and business intel space and providing services around open source intel and due diligence and fraud. Shall I hand over to my fellow colleague Gemma from Clarify?
Yeah, we'll do Gemma Bridgman next, who's from Clarify, yeah.
I am, yes. So hi everybody, I'm Gemma Bridgman. I'm heading up a new brand that we actually haven't officially launched. The official launch day is tomorrow. So it's Clarify I, and we are taking a forensic approach to threat intelligence. So we've got kind of 4 core pillars to the business around executive impersonation, background investigator, threat intelligence, and looking at the dark web, and also around some training. So watch this space for some more information.
Very excited about tomorrow.
Get a sneak peek today to talk about it, which is good.
I know.
And we're joined by Chris Woods as well from CyberQ. Chris, if you want to...
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, that sounds really exciting, Gemma. Just before I give a background on myself, really exciting. Background on me. So I've been in kind of cybersecurity about 23 years. I started my career working for a company called Fujitsu, actually. So worked for Fujitsu in various security roles. Left Fujitsu to go and work for a company called HP, Hewlett-Packard. So worked at HP for, I think it was 7 years. Various roles there. I worked very closely with GCHQ. I was a class consultant there. So again, very much worked with our friends at CSG, was back there. Worked at the European Space Agency, so lived out in Italy for a couple of years, a place called Frascati. I ended up being the cybersecurity director for HP, so that was building global capability. Again, did that for 7 years. I then got headhunted to go out to a place called Qatar, or it's pronounced Qatar. So I went from HP to the desert, which was an interesting move. To go and work for Qatar Foundation. Again, very similar role, basically building global cybersecurity capability all around innovation. So again, worked in Qatar in the Middle East for 4 years. What can I say? Midlife crisis at 39 years old in the Middle East with my wife and 2 daughters. So I came back to Birmingham actually in 2016, and we set CyberQ Group up. Very simply, cyber is what we do. So cybersecurity, we're a cybersecurity award-winning innovator. So we just do cybersecurity. Q, the name Q was taken from James Bond. So if anyone is interested in James Bond film, Q Quartermaster, because of my links to GCHQ. So again, we do a lot of pens that kill people, but we like to think in the cyber sense. And then group that we're globally based. So obviously we're based here in Birmingham. We have a team of 8 here in Birmingham. In the Philippines, we have a team of about 20, 25 people. And also we've just raised a little bit of money out in the US. So we've got 5, 6 people out in Ohio as well. CyberQ Group, again, just quickly on it, we kind of do a lot of the consultancy, kind of the penetration testing. We do a lot of innovation, a little bit Gemma on the kind of dark web, threat intelligence, security operations center of service. But the biggest one for us is collaboration. We have a lot of businesses that want to collaborate with an innovator like ourselves. So hopefully that's a background on me and a little bit about the company, Chris. Back over to you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just say that if you're known as Bond, then I'm always known as M.
We'll go for a drink after dinner.
I'll change your name on the screens in a bit. And then last but not least is Alison Hurst. And Alison is Director of the West Midlands Cyber Resilience Centre, which the BID has been working with for a couple of months actually. And we've got one of our project managers is part of the board, the group as well. So Alison, I'm going to give you, like I said, I'm going to give you a little bit longer because we kind of want to hear more about the Resilience Centre, if that's okay, and the work that you do, and I guess how businesses can get involved, if that's all right.
That's fabulous. Thanks very much for the introduction, Chris. Good morning, everyone. Yes, so I'm Alison Hurst. I'm the Director of the West Midlands Cyber Resilience Centre, but I'm also a police superintendent. So I've got 25 years policing experience with West Midlands Police, and I spent the majority of my career in uniform, probably the first half of my career in uniform, and the second half I specialised as a detective, working across a number of different thematics, mainly within the public protection arena, really. I'm really passionate about protecting vulnerable victims, and I became a senior investigating officer about 6 years ago, and I specialised in child abuse. So I've worked very closely in statutory partnership relationships and partnership models. So actually, this is probably what really appealed to me in relation to this role. It's very transferable in terms of protecting victims, but also actually what really appealed to me was the partnership arrangement in relation to the centre, because actually it's a really unique model. It's especially exciting for policing because we generally work with the public sector. So actually to collaborate with private sector, public sector, and also the not-for-profit voluntary sector is actually a really unique experience for us and really different to be able to work together to prevent the growing threat of cybercrime, obviously for businesses across the whole of the West Midlands, which is really, really important. I think we recognise as policing that we just can't do this alone, and actually we need to be able to collaborate with partners in order to really get that business reach out and that community to increase resilience across all the businesses. So the Cyber Resilience Centre went live in July of this year, which actually was only a couple of months ago, but there's some real progress being made since then. It's designed to be a preventative model. I know policing historically with cybercrime, we've been very reactive. So actually this is about getting upstream, being on the front foot and really trying to protect and provide increased resilience rather than wait until the crime has occurred. So the geography that we cover for the Resilience Centre cuts across 4 police forces. Now I've said obviously that I'm originally from the West Midlands Police Force and I've lived in the West Midlands for my whole life, but actually I've moved across the Regional Organised Crime Unit now. So we now cover Staffordshire Police, West Mercia, Warwickshire and also West Midlands. So any of those businesses in that whole of the region will be open to this advice, protection and the expertise that the centre offers. So although I've spoken about us being a regional model, this is also part of a wider national network. So the first Resilience Centre was founded about 9 years ago up in Scotland, and it's still running now independently. But now there's been a wider network, and the aim is to have 9 resilience centres across the whole of the country and Wales. So the 4th one to go live was us, West Midlands. We followed Greater Manchester, the North East, the East Midlands, the South East and South West have now gone live, and obviously now we're just looking to open one in Wales too. And this is actually really beneficial to us because actually we can share information and best practice throughout the centres. So I'm in a really sort of unique and luxurious position where actually I can look at the centres that have already gone live and really kind of like steal that best practice and be able to look at what's worked really well elsewhere and how we can really connect with the business community. So since I started kind of like in this role, it's that there's home office funding for the first 12 months, and actually the aim is for it to be a self-sustaining not-for-profit company moving forwards. So actually I've been working really hard, especially because of the pandemic. This has changed the way a lot of people work. So people are working more remotely now, and they haven't got the resilience in place that may have had actually previous to this. So it's actually more important than ever that we raise awareness in relation to cybercrime and make sure that businesses have got the right protection. So over the last couple of months, I've really tried to be concentrating on the setup of the company, and we've looked at the governance and the structure of that company. So first of all, I've been working to recruit the governance board. So what I've really tried to achieve is a real diverse mix of businesses across all sectors, including public, private, voluntary, and also academic. So we've now got 6 board members, 4 of those are for the private industry, National Express, NetCloud. We're just about to announce 2 of the big companies, iconic companies from the West Midlands too. But actually we want regional policing, so we've got Assistant Chief Constable Matt Ward on that board, also representation from the Police and Crime Commission from West Mercia, and also meeting with a number of voluntary sector organisations at the moment in order to make sure that we're also representing those too, because as we know, cybercrime really doesn't discriminate, does it? So actually it affects all businesses. So I think it's really important that we have that mix within the centre so we can really understand some of the issues that businesses are experiencing, and we can really connect to all sections of these businesses. We've also got a trusted partner group that has been established already. We've had a couple of meetings already. And these are a qualified and credible group of individuals that are trusted, and actually we can signpost companies too. So they are IASME accredited, and they are sort of trusted in their field in relation to cybersecurity. So they're able to provide advice and security and resilience to companies across the West Midlands. And actually, from a police point of view, we're really impartial, but we actually have got confidence in able to recommend these companies. So they're here to mitigate risks, raise awareness, and also provide advice on education and services in relation to cybercrime. And finally, just moving on, we've also got our student services. So this is a really sort of innovative approach in that we've been collaborating with 3 universities across the West Midlands. So that's Warwick, Wolverhampton, and also Birmingham. And we've been looking to recruit up to 5 students per university. And the aim here is to provide cybersecurity and resilience, but at a lower cost. So it will be at a fraction of the cost of that commercial rate. So for those smaller and micro businesses that are struggling at the moment to afford cybersecurity, it actually makes it a lot more affordable for those. They're on ethical hacker courses already, but we also provide additional training packages, and they are very closely supervised by one of our consultants to ensure that the product is of quality when it actually goes out. So actually that just gives our members another option in relation to the scale of services that we can provide, and obviously the cost implications in relation to that. There is actually a suite of 9 services they provide, including vulnerability assessments, but actually, as I say, there's a catalogue on our website in relation to all those services for anyone that's really interested in those. And then just in relation to the centre, what we're now, I mean, we have set up the governance structure, which is really positive. We've established a number of these groups, and we've had an awful lot of interest, which is just great. But what we really want to do now is kind of like make this accessible for businesses across the West Midlands. So we have got our website, which is www.wmcrc.co.uk. So please feel free to have a little look on that website. It describes really well in terms of the overview of the centre. There's actually pictures and biographies of each of those individuals in those groups, and also more information in relation to the services that we provide that might be right for the companies out there. So please do have a look at that. We've also, you can follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter too, and there's regular blogs and news feeds providing advice and information in relation to this too. So that obviously would be helpful. And the other thing really that I'd just like to mention at this stage is we do provide free call membership to businesses with up to 50 employees, and you can just go to the website and actually join that, and actually you'll get just advice and information, which will be at no cost. But in addition to that, we've also got a scale of services that we can provide, and also a tiered membership based on what it is actually, what your needs are. But for everybody that joins the centre, we'll have a one-to-one meeting at the beginning And that's really to understand the vulnerability, the needs, and actually how we can help. So that's a bespoke meeting to start off with, in order to be able to signpost, triage, and make sure that all the appropriate advice is provided. So thanks very much. I think probably I did go on a bit longer than maybe I was expected to.
That's all right.
So sorry if I got a little bit carried away, Chris.
That is fine. No, I mean, I think it's really interesting to hear about the Resilience Centre because, as I said, like Paul Street, who works for Colmore BID, I know we've been talking about the work that you've been doing for some time now, and it's great to see the results that are coming out of it, and sort of the relationships that are coming from it as well. One of the topics that you talked about was sort of I guess how it impacts the micro businesses as well. And I think sometimes people forget the impact that cybersecurity or hacks or cyber attacks can have. It's not, people aren't just going for those big multinational global companies. It could actually, the smaller businesses are in danger as well. Which again is been impacted by lockdown and sort of an increase in accessibility and connectedness. So I guess the first question for the group then, and I'll go around and pick on you, is what do you think are some of the biggest challenges or biggest risks that are faced by businesses at the moment in terms of any size, whether you are that global company or whether you are that small local business? What do you think some of the biggest challenges are? I'm going to go around my screen. I know everyone's screen is different, but Gemma, if it's all right, I'll start with you. Sorry,
I'm up first. I think, there's a number of different areas that can impact business. And I think that the common thread that I always have when I speak to business owners or anybody within the business goes, it's not going to happen to me. I'm too small. Why would they pick on me? And I think the thing with that is because they see the headlines and they see the big businesses, the Marriotts, the Ubers, the Sonys, they don't think it's going to happen to them. And I think, there's lots of different areas that we can look at, but I think for the purpose of this, it's the human aspect. And, you can build in so many technical controls and different layers and spend a lot of money on doing that. However, you can't stop Mary in finance from clicking on something or downloading a link and kind of downloading a paper when, because perhaps she hasn't been trained, perhaps she doesn't know that the impact of doing that. So for me, very much it's that human aspect that's the bit that we really need to make sure that people are empowered with the right information. And obviously from a business owner's perspective, attending sessions like this is really beneficial, and kind of reaching out to the Cyber Resilience Centre to get that.
Deb, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, what worries me is that there is an overconfidence in technology to protect, and it's not just about the technology. It's about how people interact with that technology, the pressures of the environment that they're in, the fact that they may not have had any training and what to look out for. And I think sometimes when we're talking to companies, their immediate response is to go to, well, I'll talk to somebody in tech in the IT department. Well, that's okay up to a point, but the IT department doesn't necessarily understand the impact from a brand and reputation point of view and the human dynamic. So, that's what concerns me, that it's not being looked at in the round. If I was going to be very academic about it, and going back to my academic days when I studied English language and literature, actually, but I focused on elements of cybernetics within literature. Cybernetics is about the symbiosis, the link between the human and the machine. And if we only focus on the technology, then we're missing out 50% of the problem.
Chris, how about yourself?
Yeah, I just echo Deb's comments there. Really, I think there's a over-reliance on technology, and basically people and process is absolutely fundamental to that. I suppose I'm at a different angle because we run a security operations centre. So as part of that, we do 24/7 monitoring for a lot of organisations, a lot of big organisations. So on our website, billion-dollar businesses like DPD. But right the way to small companies as well, because they are going back to the point, they don't think they could be attacked, or they don't think it will happen to us. And as well as the scary threat actors out there, which there's a lot, and we can cover that maybe later on, the different type of threat actors, The one that we're seeing a lot of is the insider threat. So that's the ability for someone who works for an organisation that potentially may be going through some unfortunate times due to where we are, due to COVID-19, and they may have access to certain information. And the smaller businesses don't appreciate that that spreadsheet with all their customers and their credit limits isn't important. And it's important to their competitors. And now there's a facility, you know, talking on marketplaces and the dark web where people can sell that data and they can get a few bitcoins for that data. And unfortunately, that's some of the kind of intelligence that we're seeing. The big companies know cybersecurity is important. They have to. They've got no choice if we're all blunt about it. I think there's an awakening about it's not just about technologies. I think that's probably one of the reasons that we've been successful in the last 4 or 5 years is because of the agility of working with smaller businesses. It's a lot easier for them to get the protection that they need, and also that people and process is absolutely fundamental to that. But yeah, the insider threat, just going back to that, it's an interesting one because that's something that we're seeing on our intelligence. There's a lot more people selling data, you know, on marketplaces, and they don't have to be on the dark place, the dark web. They can be on the open source. There's a marketplace there. You can do exactly the same, and you can get paid for selling some spreadsheets, some databases, and that information is very useful to your competitors as well. So again, going back to what the biggest dangers face, I just want to put that out there. You may think it's a scary guy, Russia and China or whatever country, but actually it could be the employee that you've trusted for 4 or 5 years that may be going through some difficult times, Chris. So yeah.
Can I add on to that? I think it's a really good, really important point, and we're seeing exactly the same. One of the other dangers is, and I bet you find this as well, Chris, is we, as a company, we've got a technology where we can monitor the dark web 24/7. We can scrape the marketplaces, we can do all of that. And when we talk to clients, particularly smaller ones, I would say, there's an assumption that, oh, we'll look at it this week, and if there's nothing there, then we're all right. Well, that's a bit like taking the view that I'm going to go to TK Maxx and I'm going to definitely get, you know, a Versace handbag or dress or something, and it's definitely going to be there. Well, it may be there one week, but it might not be there the next. And you've got to continually monitor. And I think that we've got to sort of try and demystify this. That one of the difficulties is that the language of cyber is quite exclusive, you know. It's not an inclusive environment, so companies don't feel empowered because the language is very strange, and it's quite a scary place anyway, and we can end up making it more scary.
I completely agree. Yeah, I was going to come back to you. Absolutely, and just to take that conversation further, it's a bit like going for a health check. I went for a health check 5 years ago. What do I need to go for another one for? Exactly. I'm going to be fine, aren't I? So I absolutely right. I think, you know, I can call myself a bit of a veteran of this industry. I'm, you know, fortunate. I've had a great career over the last 23, 24 years and working at, you know, probably the biggest companies on the planet. And the problem that we have, if I'm honest with you, Deb, is that cyber security is no different to physical security. It's the same thing. I mean, anyone on this call can have a conversation about physical security. I'm looking at Alison's probably going to be the most with the experience around physical security because of her background. But if you talk about physical security, you talk about CCTVs, you talk about gates, you talk about big dogs, big people to stop bad people getting in. We can all have a great conversation about that. Why can't we do that in the cyber world? And the difference is because we use some different language. We talk security operations center. Well, what's that mean? It's someone's looking at your cameras. And if they say a bad guy, they're going to get there. They're going to get someone out of bed to go and get rid of him. When we talk about firewalls, we're talking about big dogs. When we talk about, you know, AV, what we're talking about, people guarding. And that's where we need to become as an organization. I think as cyber professionals, we need to start leading and start saying, forget, you know, cyber terminology. You understand physical because you've had to deal with that thousands of years. As humans, we've evolved, you know, from the spear to the gun to weapons, you know, over the last 3,000 years. Cyber is still relatively new, but we need to get to the space where it's the same. And a lot of the customers that we speak to, they may be the bigger ones, but ultimately they get that as well. And our market hasn't done us any favours, Debs, as well. If you look at the amount of VC money, venture capitalist money that's come into the market to try and, you know, pump, and again, without naming companies, they distort. You know, it's in their interest to distort it. You know, when you start talking about people, process, training, that's boring, and it doesn't get VCs billion exits, does it really?
That is the thing. Yeah, and I think it's also, it's then coming into that, oh, it's exclusive, and oh, you have to pay a premium for it, and you have to do that, and it's kind of going, well, no, let's demystify it. And I totally agree with you. I think whenever I do the analogy of, well, you know what your house alarm is, you know that you wouldn't leave your door wide open, so why would you do that in the cyber world? And I think the fact that we've kind of done that with tech, haven't we, over the last kind of few years? And I think, unfortunately, we're still back in the 60s with how we approach, you know, kind of that security piece.
I find it really fascinating, actually. Obviously, having worked in many different areas of policing and many different portfolios, and, you know, I've worked kind of like with in the burglary arena or the robbery arena, or actually vehicle crime. And people just seem to take that so much more seriously in terms of it being physical. So, like, you talk about alarms and all the security protection you can put in place. Yet now I've come into the cybercrime arena, because it's so mysterious for people, because people haven't got that knowledge. It's not something, obviously they do take it as seriously, but that security and resilience isn't in place like it would be in other areas of crime.
And I think it's, you know, people are scared of it anyway. So, and the language makes it even scarier. What myself and Gemma have been talking about and talking to clients, and one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing with Clarify Eye is the fact that, you know, when a company is looking to recruit new people or to go into business and do mergers and acquisitions, they do their due diligence to whatever level they do it, and they understand that. But that's only half of the story. What's going on behind the scenes is, you know, you've got to fill the gaps. You've got to fill the gaps that you don't know. And so, you know, we're trying to say to people, you do your due diligence in the open web. Well, the dark web is no different. You know, you should be looking at both and monitoring both. And particularly coming back to Chris's point about the insider threat. Because it's usually the people that you know that who are on the inside, who've got the knowledge that's readily available to them, that are going to be the first line of threat.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an example just to clarify. So we do this for another businesses. We found a smallish business actually selling double glazing, and it was a medium-sized business in Manchester, so probably about 10 million turnover, still relatively small. We got brought in to deal with an incident response, and as we went brought into an incident response, we do, if there's any information on the dark web or deep web, open source for sale, and we come across an employee who was selling a spreadsheet basically, and we had a look. We downloaded the spreadsheet. I'd like to say that we did something really intelligent, but he left his name on the spreadsheet. Give away, really. So I was going to say we did some great, but no, he downloaded it when we got his name. And then when we asked him, and this is where it gets interesting for me. So we downloaded it. The CEO got the information. We work with a legal partner. Shout out to them, Charles Hamlins. They're our legal partner that we work this with. So then they took legal proceedings against this individual, so he couldn't work anywhere else. But when we sat him down, or when the CEO sat him down and said, "Why did you do this?" And this guy wasn't very technology advanced, to be honest with you. And basically his excuse was that he was playing five-a-side football, and he was speaking to one of his friends who he was playing five-a-side football with, and they could sell some information if he could give him the spreadsheet. So it wasn't actually the individual. And then when he asked him, he said he just wanted to take his kids to Florida, and he was, you know, he just wanted a couple of grand, and the guy said he was do that. So I think there's that guy, isn't there? There's always that guy, you know, having been brought up in Birmingham, that can do stuff, and it seems that guy can entice other people to giving them information and then make a cut off of it, really. And that's something that I wouldn't say it's prevalent, that'd be wrong of me to say that, but I think more and more as people go onto this digital world, information is valuable. And the problem is, isn't it, and I love my quotes, you know, Mike Tyson said it for me the best, you know, everybody thinks they got a plan until they get punched in the face. And I think that can be said about cyber security as well. You know, everyone doesn't really care, but when they do care, they do care, if that makes sense. And there's, you know, one of the frustrating things for us, especially with what we do, we get called, you know, incident response, the CEOs now speaking to Sky News, we've done that a few times. And again, you just think, if you just spent that, going back to Deb's point, people, process, training, you wouldn't be in this position. And then when you ask them, well, where's the money? It's a bit of a blame game. It's like, well, the IT guys didn't say we needed money. And are they the right people to talk about cybersecurity? Again, going back to your point there. So anyway, that was a little bit of an example that we've saw in the past, Chris. And hopefully that made sense to the people on the meeting as well.
I mean, I think one of the big issues with cybersecurity and cyber attacks is just how quickly it can evolve as well. I mean, one of the questions I'll come to in a second is you look at I don't know, 10 years ago when we were all getting the spam junk emails, so looking at phishing and things like that, and you kind of knew that they weren't real. You know, it was somebody asking to deposit money into your account if you give them your credit card details or and things like that. But the concept is still there. So we're looking at phishing, but it's become a bit more sophisticated. We had an incident the other day, and well, I've had one of my old company as well. When you have an email from your managing director saying, "Oh, can you drop everything? I need you to work on something," and you just go, "Oh yeah," because you see their name come up in your inbox. "Oh yeah, what do you need?" And then this example was, "I need you to go out and buy like £200 worth of Amazon vouchers." And I was thinking, going, why? That's a bit weird. And then I looked at the email address, and it was obviously a phishing attack. So come back to Chris, because I know we and Gemma as well, because we talked about it on emails and things like that. What is phishing with a PH, not with like out with your
with the rod.
Together. But yeah, we'll start with Chris. And what because you touched upon it, what is phishing?
I think there's lots of descriptions of what phishing email. I think the best way, really, I'm trying to get it under, what is it, Albert Einstein. If you can't explain it simply enough, you don't know well enough. But in essence, phishing is the ability to entice someone to give over information, personal information, bank details, etc. So it's the ability enticing someone to share that information with you. And there's various ways to do that. There's not just email, there's text messaging, there's phishing. There's lots of different avenues that one can use, even social media, WhatsApp, and stuff like doing.
Talking of WhatsApp, it happened to Jeremy Vine.
Yeah.
Last week. I saw he'd actually done quite a few tweets afterwards where he'd had a WhatsApp message or he thought he'd had a WhatsApp message from his neighbour, asking, I think it was like borrow £10 or something like that, and he publicly said that normally he wouldn't have even thought about it. He'd have gone, no, this is dodgy. But because he was in the middle of doing a broadcast, he quickly responded and just went, oh yeah, sure, how can I help? And then afterwards, he texted his neighbour and was like, "No, this is a scam." So it's not just on emails. Gemma, what should people look out for in terms of phishing? Obviously, like Chris said, it can come out via emails and WhatsApps. What should people be looking out for, do you think, for those phishing attacks?
I think prior just to answering that, I think the way that they create these convincing and compelling emails or texts or anything like that is, unfortunately, because of the way that we are with social media and the overshare. And I think we have this kind of earnest desire to put out there, as you mentioned, Instagram and different things, that we all want to put out this kind of world and share, what we do and things. Well, unfortunately, people will use that against to either create compelling content that you go, I know that you're into cricket or drinking wine or whatever, and so we'll create content that you go, oh, I can get a wine deal, or I could go to and join that cricket group. So it's all about that enticement, like Chris said. So it's creating something that makes you kind of want to kind of click on it. I think the way that you kind of need to look out for, what is going on within these things, there's normally a demand. There's normally a sense of urgency. So it's you've got to do this now, whether that be from an MD, in inverted commas, or from all this competition's going to end. So it's enticing you to do the thing that you shouldn't. So whether it be click on a link or open an attachment. Now, the thing that businesses and people really need to look out for is, as you said, hover over that email. Yes, it might say it's from your MD, but just hover over it. Is at your MD's email address. They can do them really well now, whether it can just be swapping an L out for an I or whatever. So when people are busy and things, it's very difficult. And on smartphones, you have to really look at it differently to if you're on a desktop. So take that moment. You know, it's never that urgent to not be able to look at that. If there's something that's not right about it, then there's something not right about it. So, you know, don't, you know, take that time really. And I think it's also going, if you do that and you click on it, then report it. You tell your IT department, tell your provider. It's not the, you know, if you have done it, it's better to get that out there sooner rather than later, because, you know, we were talking about different breaches and things, and you know, typically the timescale from breach to it appearing on the dark web, you're looking about 9 months. So actually, the scary thing is that when COVID hit and, you know, things, we're not hitting the 9-month point until next month. So actually, when all those businesses were mobilized back in March, we probably aren't going to see the repercussions of that from them not having technical controls and not doing that until probably December, when we're going to start to see the fallout from that, which is, you know, for me really is quite concerning for businesses. So yeah, that would be my top tips of what to look out for.
I think the key word is breathe. Before you do anything, just take a breath. You know, and sometimes, you know, I always think about on a Friday with conveyancers, law firms who are doing conveyancing. They're under so much pressure to be moving money around. I never want to complete on a Friday because I am actually completing next week, but I've made it a Tuesday because I just don't trust Fridays. So breathe, and if you feel that it isn't right, even though it looks like it's right, then it most likely isn't right. There is a phone call that you can make and ring up if there's a
Not
number.
on the number that's on the email though. Ring the number you know.
Yeah, not on the number that's on the email. So and it comes back to environment again, and about training. So, you know, we run phishing campaigns where we can work with a company and do a campaign and see how their team are performing, and then train them around what the results are from those phishing campaigns. But yeah, it's I mean, we've seen apparently this statistics are about 400% increase in fraud, online fraud, through COVID. So it's amazing how it's ramped up, but it certainly has.
So talking about, I want to pick up about COVID then. Obviously, people's working habits have completely changed. I mean, I joined Colmore BID back in March. I've been to the office 4 times. So, you know, so people are working from home. They're using home computers, or they're taking their office technology back home, getting access to servers, hard drives, whatever, to be able to do their work. So in terms of that lockdown, how do you think working from home has impacted cybersecurity? I guess if we start with you, Deb, because you touched upon it there, if that's all right.
Yeah, I think what concerns me is, I think if companies haven't got this security and the training locked down before COVID, and now they've gone into home working, that they won't have got it now. And I mean, myself and Gemma have talked about this, and Gemma, you've had, you know, scary incidences where, you know, of companies who have not done any sort of security level check at all.
Yeah, I've had my sister-in-law started at a new business, a big company, and basically was given free rein onto the systems with her computer, which was old, had no AV on, no nothing, and that was it. And I've heard, you know, big law practices as well, where they've just been given access to case files and you name it, on archaic stuff that's been pulled out of that should have been in the destroy box, has been like kind of mobilized because they were just trying to do it, which I get. You know, obviously every business, none of us wanted to stop back in March, and you know, it was it was hard, and people couldn't get hold of laptops and things like that. But it certainly is, you know, kind of scary that is the, you know, kind of what has happened. And so I think with the Cyber Resilience Centre, and, you know, kind of with businesses like, you know, ours that are on the panel today, is that talk, come and talk to and get some advice, and come and speak to us, because we can help with what steps you can take, and to make sure that, yes, if you've got people working from home, make sure it's done in a secure way.
And you can bet your bottom dollar that somebody somewhere is using a computer for work, and their kids will go onto that computer and start going on to YouTube and start going on to this and start going on to that. Before you know where you are, any level of security is completely gone.
That's it. I think things have moved on, haven't they? Because they of the pop-ups on your web browser and things. I mean, they still happen. Of course, pop-ups still happen and stuff, but they lead to all sorts of things and getting your email addresses and things like that. It's just the principle's still there. It's just that how it's implemented has become a bit more sophisticated. I guess this one's linked, but a bit off topic. But Gemma, you talked about sort of like those archaic devices, the old computers and things like that. Technology moves so quickly, and particularly with lockdown, people have invested in new technology, not necessarily the security aspect of it. And I guess this is very well, maybe Alison as well. How should people be getting rid of their devices with new iPhones coming out all the time? People upgrading their computers and phones and things like that. Is there a way for people to, and companies in particular, to safely be rid of their own technology that isn't just throw it in the bin, where someone can pick it up and get God knows what off it? What should companies be doing when they're upgrading their technologies?
So there are companies out there absolutely that can do that can wipe them and destroy them in an ethical and environmentally friendly way. But yeah, absolutely, don't throw them in the bin. Don't sell them on eBay. Don't do that. That they need to be wiped correctly, and I'm sure Alison can give us some more info on different companies that are available.
Alison, do you think is it a case of other? Because obviously it comes down to money at the end of the day, and some people think, employing a cybersecurity expert is going to cost me X amount, and I'm a small business, so I shouldn't do that. But there are just certain things that it's better to get somebody else to do. But for safety reasons, and we're not I'm not an expert on cybersecurity, things like that. So from that, getting rid of the technology, what do you think people should do? Is it a case of they could call it the Resilience Centre and they might be able to offer advice, or where should they go?
Yeah, so we're open to offering advice to anyone that actually is interested in hearing it, because we've already had one-to-ones with a number of people, and actually there are a lot of people that knowledge levels are very, very, very low in this area, and there's not a problem with that. We totally accept that. We don't expect any level of knowledge. So actually we have got the right people that can offer this advice in relation to any cybersecurity aspect. Not just that, we're able to triage that and also signpost to the appropriate place. Now, we have spoken about some businesses that are obviously struggling throughout COVID and potentially before, and actually don't see this as a priority. In actual fact, it really is a priority. And through the Resilience Centre, we are able, fortunately, to offer really affordable security and resilience options. Some of those are through the student services, but they will be very intrusively and closely supervised, so we'll make sure that quality products are provided. But I would urge people to sort of, come to us and have the conversation to start off with, and we can really work with them to understand what vulnerabilities they've got and actually the best solutions to this. We can work with them with the right people in order to do that.
I totally agree. I mean, this isn't about tech actually. This is ultimately about brand and reputation. And you spend all your energy and all your passion and all building up teams, building up products and services, building up all your brand and reputation, and it can go in nanoseconds. And that's the importance of this. It's not the zeros and ones that those are the tools that will help you, but it's everything else as well. And coming back to Gemma's point at the very beginning about oversharing, we did a piece of work for CIFAS, which is the National Fraud Database Membership Organisation, and we looked, and this is going back to 2017, and we looked at online fraud, both on the open and dark web. And the information that's out there, company directors, what they put out, using their personal home addresses on company's house. You know, what you're giving, what's available on land registry, what you're putting out on social media. And remember, you don't have to be on social media, but your family member might be, or your mate might be, and they're sharing stuff, and you don't potentially know about it. It doesn't take very long in order to put a profile together of someone. So, you know, there's lots of things that we need to take into account when we're thinking about cyber, and it's not just the zeros and ones.
And I think following on from that point and the brand piece, it's all risk, isn't it? And it's how much that you're willing to kind of spend on that. And it's kind of saying, well, hang on, would I think of going back to Chris's analogy with the physical security? I wouldn't think to have an office building without the right levels of physical security. So actually, as a business owner, you know, you have the kind of responsibility to make sure that you're keeping your staff secure in the online world as well. It shouldn't be any different. It should just be part of, you know, there's insurance and, you know, health and safety, all those kind of bits. It should just basically be part of that kind of business toolkit 101. I need to have that line kind of covered. So yeah, absolutely, it should be affordable and it should be accessible for kind of every business, but it certainly should be something that is done from as a business owner, whether you're a one man, you know, kind of band, one person, I should say, shouldn't I? What did my daughter said to me the other day? It was something about mankind, and she went, "No, mummy, it's humankind. It's human made now, not man made." I was like, "Oh, okay." So put in my place.
I think if I can just pick up on your point, not about the mankind or humankind, but
just to avoid that probably.
Absolutely, I'm moving on. I've got 2 daughters myself, so I'm definitely moving on from there. Talking about physical security, I mean, the best way, you know, obviously, you know, sledgehammer, isn't it? Really, sledgehammer, hard drive, phone, that usually sorts it. But just giving you some examples, mapping it back from people working from home and what we've seen. We do a lot of penetration testing for a number of different businesses, and one of our guys was quite interesting. Went on to well, let's go back from the beginning. Basically, we had a penetration test engagement with this client. This client thought they were secure, so we went in there. And what this individual, Ken, actually works for me. He was able to get onto a kettle. There was something called a smart kettle, iKettle it's called. You can Google it later. An iKettle has a password that's embedded into the kettle. And what Ken was able to do is get into this organisation, basically hacking the kettle, which, if I'm honest with you, I'm like, that's really cool, but basically you can't really make someone a cup of tea. You can just turn the kettle on and off. You know, what use is that? But well done anyway. But what was interesting is that the kettle was on the same local area network, or it's on the same road from a physical security than the conference room. And the conference room has board meetings. And he was able to hack the kettle from the kettle inside the organisation. So he got in the house, and from there he could hack the TV. And he hacked the TV, and it was an Android TV, standard, pretty much smart TV. And he recorded a board meeting for 2 hours, and that was about 1.5 years ago. And I was like, wow. I think this board meeting for this organisation, who they were going to buy, they were quite a big size organisation, who they didn't like, who they liked, who they were going to buy. It was amazing. So we played that back at the CEO, and the CEO was, you know, probably one of the most bizarrest moments in my career. Was how the hell did you do that? And when I said we hacked his kettle, I had to take a double take to that, because that in essence what we did. We hacked his kettle to get onto his conference room. So my point, bringing all that back to people working from home and what we're seeing, and we're doing monitoring from that, is that your laptop's at home, but you've probably got other IoT devices in your home. You've probably got a camera, you've probably got some devices. If they're anything like mine.
Don't say the name of the one beginning with A.
Yeah, yeah, not saying the names. I'm going to be technology agnostic, but I love roadblocks, and God only knows what they do on roadblocks. And well, we do know actually, but I mean, you know, in what they're installing. So that threat landscape just went from that laptop to now that person's home. You know, and that's something that we're seeing that organisations don't sometimes comprehend. And when we talk about the kettle story, because I'm still amazed from that now. That's just going to get worse. You know, the trainers coming out with doing your steps, and everyone thinks all they need is a foothold into your organisation. So you know, if you imagine that physical security, they don't need to get into the front door.
Yeah.
You know, the objective is to get into your bedroom. They don't need to go through the front door. If they can get into your cubby hole, if they can get into your shed, that then gives them the opportunity to work their way from the shed into the bedroom where, let's say, the crown jewels are. And that's the key thing that I think organisations that we're speaking to, and again, we always talk about physical security, it's been very, very prevalent. But again, just organisations need to be aware of that. They think that their laptop's secure, but they may have bought a camera from a country that I won't name that could be wide open to do that. So yeah, I just thought I'd link that back, Chris.
No, that's good.
And I think it's, you know, it's come back to environment. You know, it's about the physical environment as much as anything else as well. But I think also, because we're getting close to the end, I think give some people some comfort. You know, in forensics, you know, you can only do what you do what's reasonable. What actions have you taken? What is reasonable? And you can only do so much. But the important thing is, if something does happen, don't bury your head in the sand over it. Deal with it, because it's your response to it that will make sure that you get through it and learn from it and put in the right structures in place for the future. So see it, accept it, sort it out, basically.
We're coming up close to the end now. So if anyone's got any other questions from the audience, from the attendees, please do pop them in the chat. I do feel like I want to go and unplug all my kettles now, though, to be honest.
How many IoT kettles have you got?
But it nicely links to the final question, and I guess it's the question that people are most interested. Other than, I guess, talking to organisations like yourselves and hiring a cybersecurity expert in one form or another, what measures can businesses do or put in place themselves, I guess, to begin with, as part of preparing sort of that security plan, as it were? Because it's one that's that need, like Deb said very earlier on, it's one that you can't just put it in place and then just leave it. It's one that needs updating and following, like, forever, basically, because cybersecurity evolves. So if we start with Chris then, if that's okay.
Yeah.
What measures do you think businesses should take then?
I think, and again, just picking up on Deb and Jemmy's point, really, I think just to highlight what you just said, Chris, because it's an evolution, and sometimes people stop about that, isn't it? It's a bit like it's a process, and it changes because as the threat landscape changes, the business needs to change as well. People are working from home, so what's the additional risk? So the first thing is there's a strategy, and it's an ongoing strategy. I think training, you know, if you look at most of the threats and most the breaches that we've been involved in, to be fair, is 75% are usually down to human error. You know, it's kind of people clicking on links, it's people giving passwords away, it's unpatched systems, which have vulnerabilities in there. And that's something that, again, without having the expert advice, they potentially can get help to do themselves. Obviously, it's better if they have, you know, expert help to give the training and having a third party to come in there. But there are a couple of things that really you can reduce your exposure by about 75-80% just by making sure your systems are patched, making sure that you're, making sure that your people in the business are trained. And again, they're two steps. There's obviously lots more, but they're two massive steps that makes a huge difference to reduce the risk exposure for the business.
Debs, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just follow what Chris says, really. I mean, the fact of the matter is this is an ongoing process. It evolves. You've got to keep monitoring. You've got to keep looking at where you are in the business and how you're training your staff and what structures you're putting in place. And just, I think that's it. That's the key to it. Continually monitor and evaluate, and don't go beyond what you need to be doing. You know, if you're a small business, you're not a humongous multinational with fabulous infrastructures. Be real about it, but take the right measures. Be balanced.
Gemma, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think obviously I echo kind of what the rest of the panel say. I think having a layered approach to it, and thinking, kind of what would it mean if, and what would it mean to my business if this happened? How long would it we be down for? How can we do that? Right, what do I need to do about that? I think that's, you know, thinking of that in the round and taking a balanced view, I think is critical with it.
Brilliant. And Alison, I guess final thought from Alison.
Yeah, just to add to that, I would agree with all those comments. But it's not just organisational responsibilities, it's also, there is a personal responsibility on any individual within a company in order to make sure the appropriate security is in place, knowing their roles and responsibilities in relation to data protection information as well. So I think that comes as a whole package, doesn't it? But obviously, just to finish, to say that, you know, we are here. So if anybody has got any queries, if anybody isn't sure, or any questions in relation to today's discussion, hopefully it has raised some awareness, and actually it has been thought-provoking. But we are here to answer any questions, and also if there is any referrals or anybody would like any more education or services provided, then please do get in touch.
And we've got our brand launch tomorrow.
Yes.
Indeed.
Profile.com. I'm an entrepreneur, what can I say? I've got to get it in.
No, that's exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was going to say, you took over, it's fine.
I thought I was going to steal the show, Deb, but no.
Swoops in at there.
All about Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, both the panelists and our attendees as well. Really, really appreciate it. It is an important topic, and it's one that we will definitely pick up again next year as Cybersecurity Awareness Month comes back. But it's important that I think we continue to have these conversations and discuss it. I've just posted a link to the BID's cybersecurity guide, which we wrote in conjunction with the Resilience Centre. So it picks on a couple of the topics that we've discussed here today around social media, some of the big scams around for COVID-19, as well as sort of bring your own devices as well. So the use of using your own devices at home for work. I will share, I'll obviously speak to the panelists first, but I will share the panelists' details afterwards if they're happy with that. So if anybody has got any questions or they want to take them up on their offers of use of their services, they can get in direct contact as well. But we've also got a security mailing list as well, which we're working on from the BID's perspective, where you can sign up and get lots more information about other initiatives like this, both from a cyber security perspective, but also physical security as well. And I'll share details with that either later today or tomorrow. And of course, this session was recorded, so if you've joined in late or you've got colleagues that you think, okay, you definitely need to watch this because you click on these links, you can share that as well. But yeah, thank you ever so much for joining us today. And once again, thank you to the panel. And hopefully we'll speak to you all very soon.
Brilliant.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.